Good morning, I'm Marty Gaska from Objective Group. Ramon Tremontini and I attended Camp IT's Enterprise Agile Summit on April 4th. A key question was raised: how do you get funding for Agile projects? We don't really think we came away with an answer there, so we created this content. This video speaks about what you need to do to convince your stakeholder to fund your project. It does start with a review of key Agile concepts. If you don't need the review, you can fast forward to here. And now we'd like to share our thoughts. Getting funding for Agile projects. At Camp IT, we posed the question, but we don't think it ever really got answered. So here are our thoughts. The goal is to share what we've learned over the last decade about requesting funding and sponsoring Agile projects. We've been on both sides of the table, sometimes approving funding, sometimes asking for funding for projects in complex environments. And what do we consider complex environments? Well, multiple teams, multiple projects with multiple clients. But we should clarify, why do people adopt Agile? Well, the rhetoric says faster, cheaper, and better deliveries. This is based on results from other companies or teams. If you are using Agile properly, you'll find you have a better final result, which costs less and is delivered earlier. But this is the effect, not the cause. Why do we think this? Well, Agile resources don't cost less. The pay is the same, Agile or no. Agile resources are not faster. They don't magically type faster because they're in an Agile team. And Agile resources make just as many errors as waterfall. Agile makes sense, however, because of the Pareto principle. In almost any industry, 20% of the work is used 80% of the time. What Agile does for you is help you find the 20% faster. These are the most essential features and functions. They're the source of the majority of business value. At the end of the day, you feel like you are delivering faster, better, and cheaper, but in reality, you are creating the right things at the right time. So how does Agile do that? Efficiency and efficacy are often considered synonyms. Peter Drucker points out here that they are not. Efficiency means doing more with less. If you think about a production line making cars, you need a specific set of tools and techniques to help you leverage your efficiency. Efficacy actually means doing the optimal things. Efficacy is confirming the right question and the correct answer to that question. You also need a specific set of tools to leverage efficacy. So these are two realms, two different sets of tools and techniques, but both realms complement each other. Think about the oil industry. You need to extract as much oil as possible, as fast as possible, with low risks and low waste. It's all about efficiency. However, it doesn't matter if you have the best drilling tools, staff, and platforms if you're drilling where the oil isn't. Finding the right oil field is about efficacy. Bringing the point to our world. Successful delivery is based on a discovery process where you strive for the right components to be delivered at the right time. That's all about efficacy. Agile gives us the tools to leverage that discovery process. But how? Alison Valle is a well-known Kanban pioneer, and he distilled what is needed to leverage efficacy in his formula. The question mark represents when you generate a hypothesis to solve a business problem or pain. The exclamation point represents when you validate the hypothesis against reality. Between those 2 points of time, you have the real work. The secret to leverage efficacy is to shorten the time between the question and its answer so you can learn from your findings and plot your direction. Remember, you're discovering the path you need to take to get to your destiny. This is a feedback loop, and your highest leverage point you can create is to accelerate that feedback loop. But back to, how do you get the funding? Let's start by going inside the mind of the sponsor. In my time as the sponsor, I can tell you it's fundamental to balance the company's capacity and demand in a sustainable fashion. A sponsor needs to understand what will be delivered, how much it will be cost, and when it will be done. With that information, I could assess if the project was aligned to the goals, analyze known trade-offs, and make a call, often asking for adjustments, constraints, or specific requests based on my knowledge of the business. In the words of Dr. Evil, I need the info. So scope, what will be done, And what is the business pain and goals that'll be addressed? Resources and staff are my cost. And my timeline, when will it be done? Scope, cost, and timeline are the classic iron triangle from project management. Project Management 101. This is nothing new. But now we have the paradox. If development of a project is a discovery process, answering those questions is tricky. It is impossible to predict all the components and the size of the project accurately. There will always be changes, discovery, failures, surprises, broken hypotheses, etc. It's the chicken and egg situation. You need to run the project to validate the hypothesis, learn and strive in the right direction. But how to justify the funds when you don't have a rock-solid iron triangle? Well, before you had Agile, you created a tentative plan for the whole project at once, trying your best to reduce risks and understanding the big picture and ultimately answering the 3 questions. This is known as big design up front, or beat up. The problem with beat up is the inevitable domino effect given the nested, non-validated hypothesis in the project backlog. When hypotheses start to be validated, changes occur, triggering a chain reaction, an endless cycle of circular discussions with the client and sponsor regarding the boundaries and the point of leading the project to its eventual failure, cost overruns, or abandonment. This is the world you've lived in. So how to avoid beat up while answering the 3 questions about the project boundaries? We propose you make the following agreements with the sponsor, stakeholders, and finance. Skin in the game. A cadence must be set no less than 30 days where the PM will update the sponsor with project status so the sponsor can decide if the project will continue or not. The efficacy formula works to the point that best possible value will be delivered with each interaction. If the deliverables do not justify the total investment and time projected, it's better to cancel the project and move on. It failed fast, which is good. However, negotiate a grace period of 30 to 60 days depending on the context so the project can reach cruise velocity. We also suggest a new project boundary, quality. Quality must be monitored at all times, measuring your defects, efficiency, and your hypothesis accuracy, efficacy. The boundaries are abstractions of the project's reality. Therefore, they must represent the whole project, be it your backlog, planned, doing, done, canceled, all the activities. You also have to define thresholds. Time-sensible thresholds must be set for each boundary. The expected cost and scope done every given week and its actuals so the trends can be calculated. Visibility. The boundaries must be visible and accessible to the sponsors, finance, and stakeholders at all times. Don't hide problems. Transparency builds trust. A disproven hypothesis in the first weeks saves an equivalent of months in waterfall. It's the whole point of being agile. Data. Data must be accurate and collected automatically where possible. Real-time or as close to possible data is important to avoid the GIGO effect, garbage in, garbage out. GIGO often happens in projects when the PM is struggling to gather and compile data manually. Errors will happen. Automation can help limit the same mistake from happening twice. Lastly, steer the project. The winds of change propel your project. Use the sails of your team to keep it moving, but you need a rudder to steer based on the changes you encounter. Use the data and insights you gathered to steer and adjust the project's course. So let's pull this together and summarize what we've learned. Everyone has to have a stake in a leap of faith for funding Agile. You must provide actionable information to your partners and allow them to make data-driven decisions in the spirit of cooperation that you have created. Provide transparency to the outcomes, both good and bad. A revised hypothesis in Agile is way better than a failure in waterfall after 6 months. Focus on the most meaningful and valuable assets first. Delivery of value builds momentum. Agile projects are shapeshifters. Allow it to flex and change, and you will deliver what is needed instead of what was asked for. That's the true value. Clean and simple data can be understood. If you need a data scientist to explain your progress, you're doing it wrong. Keep this in mind. You've been doing projects without Agile for a long time. Your previous focus on detail built trust in you. Continue doing this, and they will trust you if you give them the transparency that they need. And so we conclude. I hope you have found this content valuable. There's a second video which breaks down the whats we have shown you into actionable hows. Be sure to see that as well. If you have further questions, please reach out to us at objectivegroup.com. We look forward to speaking with you. Thank you.